I'm Professor Jim Blake, known in Corona as Spade, for those who go back to the 50s, okay? And I went to PS 143, I went to PS 92, I went to 127, and I went to 16. Don't tell me why I went to all of those schools. There was a reason, okay? You know, and my family grew up here. We're from, originally from South Carolina, a place called Bamberg, South Carolina. How many of you heard of Bamberg, South Carolina?
Yes.
Bamberg, South Carolina.
Yes.
You know, you get on the train to go to Bamberg, and you say, Bamberg, you throw your suitcase off and you jump on because the train doesn't stop. You know, and I grew up mainly on 108th Street, between Northern and 32nd Avenue. So we're going to ask the panelists to come up, and we're going to introduce them, and we're going to start the discussion. Greetings. This is a great opportunity to introduce some very, very important people who played a pivotal role in the development of the Corona branch of the Black Panther Party. It's not always you have an opportunity to hear from eyewitnesses, people who actually were there, people who were involved, and people who participated. So this is very special for us in the Corona East Elmhurst area, and I'm going to introduce them. Starting to my immediate left is Claudia Chesham, known as Billy Williams. She was born in Chesapeake, Virginia, but relocated to Corona at the age of 4. She attended PS 19, PS 92, 127, and then junior high school 16 before going on to Newtown High School. She joined the Corona branch of the Black Panther Party in 1969 at the age of 18. She described her involvement as frustrating, heartbreaking, the hardest yet most educational experience of her life. Life-changing lessons were learned that have stayed with Claudia throughout her life. Let's give Claudia a nice round of applause. Next to her is Thelma Davis, also known as Bunny LeGrare, is a wife, mother, grandmother, and currently lives in St. Albans with her husband and sons, but she grew up in the 50s and the 60s in Corona East Elmhurst. She attended several schools in the community, PS 92, 127, and 143. In her teens, she became curious about the civil rights movement and decided she wanted to be a part of the movement after visiting the Malcolm X Cultural Center located on 2nd Street and Northern Boulevard. Y'all remember where that was? Yeah. She joined Black Panther Party in 1969 at the age of 14. Against her mother's objections, whom she deeply respected, she attended the organization's political education classes and memorized a 10-point program and platform. She sold the Black Panther Party newspaper and cooked for the free breakfast program. A love of serving people drew Thelma to the Black Panther Party. Thelma. And all the way to my extreme left is Yasmin Majid, formerly also known as Jennifer Sutton, and we're going to change that in the video, okay? Because we just put Jennifer, you know, so we'll get that straight. She joined the Black Panther Party in Corona at the age of 18. She is currently treasurer of the National Alumni Association of the Black Panther Party and serves as a member of the Black Panther Party's Commemoration Committee of New York. In her current role, she works to advance recognition and preserve an understanding of a generation of young people considered the most culturally, socially, and politically significant in African American history. In this effort, Yasmin and her colleagues collaborate with Mayus Cinema, a documentary film theater in Harlem, who assists in the annual Black Panther Party film festivities. She's also been very involved with Elmhurst. She worked with the Allen A&E Church and did work to help that church become the Allen A&E Cathedral. And she worked for 18 years with an organization called Green Hope Services, helping incarcerated women return to the community. Let's hear it for yes. I don't want to say this often, but these are important women, so let's really hear it for them. I'm going to ask them a series of questions, and listen, I want you to, answer it in any way you want. It's not, we're trying to be not too formal, because I feel that we can get more information that way. So I'll just set the stage. The 60s, it was a time of great turmoil in the United States. The Vietnam War escalating, the uprising against police oppression in like Watts and Oakland and other cities in America. The constant and brutal violence against peaceful demonstrators in both the North and the South. An onslaught of violence and racism in 1966. In that context, two college students, one named Huey P. Newton and the other named Bobby Seals, founded the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense in Oakland, California. Cornel West describes the party's founding as one of the great moments in the struggle for black freedom and democratic. I thought that was me coming. Moments of struggle for black freedom and deep democracy in the United States. Starting as a local organization and followed and observed by the police in Oakland in 1967, the Panthers grew dramatically by 1970, opening offices in 68 cities. New York was one of those cities, and Corona, Queens was one of the local communities in New York to form a branch of the Black Panther Party. This panel will look at the role of women from the viewpoint of the Corona East Elmhurst Black Panther Party branch. So I'm going to start with just asking of each of you, what drew you and how did you become and when did you become involved in the Black Panther Party?
Okay, first of all, I want to first say, since this is the end of March and this is Women's Month, I want to say respect to our elders and all of the warrior women that we just saw in the film. They need to be, we were actually on their shoulders. They came first, they fought the way they fought, we fought the way we fought, but it was all a fight and it was all for the community. Second of all, I want to say this place should be packed. I mean, this is such a wonderful way to branch the generations, to show the then and the now, that nobody should have missed this. I hope the Preservation Society will do it again so that everybody can see. It's quite funny when you think about my becoming a Panther. It was very, very hard back in those days to look at the TV because now things were being shown. You had a visual picture of your people being sprayed with water and dogs jumping on them, and then, Huey and Bobby said, well, that's okay. They can turn the other cheek, but we ain't gonna do it. So I was with the, we ain't gonna turn the other cheek. It was time to take a stand. And one of the most interesting things that I can think of at this time was the reason why there are street lights up and down Northern Boulevard is because Panthers went out there and blocked traffic because our little boys were getting hit and, hit and runs. They were getting maimed, killed, and seniors. So we did all the things that we needed to do. We did the petition, we went to the city hall and all of that. They always say you can't fight city hall. So we decided what we would do if nobody was going to listen to our pleas for a street light on 102nd Street, we were going to block traffic. We were going to make it hard for the businessman to get from Manhattan to Long Island, going through our community nonstop, hitting us and keep on going. We were met with police on horseback. And they were not going to allow these young people to disrupt the flow.
Young black people.
You know, so that's where we were met. At the time, I think I was about 6.5 months pregnant. And I didn't know whether I was going to be stomped to death or lose my baby, but at that time we had no fear because we knew it was a bigger issue. It was bigger than just the individual. We were fighting for our community. At that time, you know, several of Panthers were beaten ahead with billy clubs. It was a real sad time. But the people in the community came out and said, you know, if these kids can go out there and they can do this for us, we can come out here too. The way I joined the Black Panther Party was because of a black policeman that accused us of stealing his stereo equipment one night when we were coming home from a rally. It was about 8 brothers and 2 sisters, Jennifer, Yasmin, and I. And this man that jumped out of his car was drunk. And we said, oh, no, 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 we'll help you find your stuff. We're Panthers. We don't steal from our people. Well, make a long story short, he was a policeman. He was a drunken policeman. He was trying to make a big bus. So he jumped out of his car, he threw his gun in my face, and the brothers were all trying to surround us to protect us. But after that incident went down, and I know Yasmin will tell you more about it, you know, we, under the guidance of Bill Brownbill, I don't know if you guys remember him, but he was our mentor in the Cronies Elmhurst area. He told us that we had to go to the Civilian Review Board, we had to do this, we had to do that, we had to do it by the book, we had to do it the way it was supposed to be done. Well, a bunch of teenagers going to the Civilian Review Board, they didn't want to hear it. They threw it out as if it didn't happen. So I said, well, if we can't do it that way, I guess I'll just join the Black Panther Party. And that's how I joined.
Thank you so much for that. Yes.
I guess I'm next. Well, like the gentleman said, I visited the Malcolm X Center. First off, I was raised in Cronies Elmhurst. I went to 127, 92, 143. And just like any other teenager during that time, you know, you're curious about this, you're curious about that. Like the sister said, you're watching the television and you're seeing the civil rights movement, you're seeing the people being beat down, dogs and hoses, and it was just horrific. So we had a few community centers in Cronies Elmhurst. Well, one was Malcolm X right here on 102nd Street, Northern Boulevard. So one evening I was there and they had these meetings and I was listening and I became more curious, sir. Curious, sir. And so I decided that I was going to join the Black Panther Party. Well, my mother almost had a stroke, laid down and everything, pulling the hair out, and Lord have mercy, my child, my child. So I wanted to listen to her. I can understand her being afraid for me, but this was just too important. It was bigger, it was bigger than me. It was bigger than anybody. It was just a big thing that was happening to our people. Nothing was being done like today. Not much has changed. Not much has changed. So I decided to join the Black Panther Party against my mom's will. And so I was about 14, and I started going to meetings and cooking for the free breakfast programs for the children in the morning. Started selling papers, working out of the different offices in the different boroughs and elsewhere. And I loved serving the people. That was a very fulfilled purpose for me. And I continued being in the party until the end, just about the break, the split. And I can't even, it's just so much more. So Jennifer, you go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Yasmin, sorry.
Thank you. Well, I joined the party because there was so much, as Bunny and Claudia said, there's a lot of stuff going on in the country.
Right.
And so what came to my mind right now is you was either part of the problem or part of the solution. And while I didn't understand that, I definitely knew what I wanted to do. I was at the time going to New York City Community College. I had just graduated from Forest Hills High School, and I was a part of the Black Student Union on my campus. But the community was, I guess, growing up in Corona, and you felt the need to be a part of something. And at the time, it was actually the Christmas of 1968. I was hanging out in Jamaica, and in walked these Corona Panthers. Mind you, these Corona Panthers were originally enchanters and chaplains.
That's right.
And they're together. And they come into this place, and there was one little sister with them. Her name was Jewel Crawford. I don't know if anybody knows her. But this little sister was with them. And I'm saying, what is she doing with Saul and bullwhipping them, you know? But at that time. So I started talking to them, and then they told me how at the Malcolm X Cultural Center they had, it was a Panther office, and they was doing Panther work out of that office, and that I needed to come up there and check it out. So I did. And then, this was, like I said, around Christmas time. So January, I go up to the party, me and Claudia go up there, and we're talking, and then we get involved. It was like, it was not I actually didn't even think about it. It was just, this is something that had to happen. This is what we did. We got involved. And getting involved, you get what Fred said, you get high on the people. Mm-hmm. And that is what drove us into the party. Now, I'm an only child. And my mother, when she found out I was part of the Black Panther Party, she said, I can understand you getting involved, but you need to get involved with the NAACP. And then I didn't understand what she meant, but based on what happened to us the Black Panther Party and how it was destroyed and how people was killed, I understood later. But at the time, that was the least from my mind. I did not want to be involved in anything but the Black Panther Party, because the Black Panther Party was about serving the people. And we had this thing, we had an undying love for our people.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that information. Another question I have. Most 14-year-olds back then were knocking on your door and asking you to buy Boy Scout or Girl Scout cookies. And here you are knocking on somebody's door or stopping them and asking them to buy the Black Panther Party newspaper.
Yes.
What was that experience like, and how did they respond to you?
Well, I didn't look at, it was something that I wanted to do. My approach with them were, they looked at me like, you know, what's this little girl, you know, even though I was kind of big for my age. But, but when I start talking to them and explaining to them what we were about and pointing out all the injustices that was happening, and I would show them, you know, with articles and explain to them, not just, here's a paper, I did not do that. I always explained what my purpose was. And after a while, it just became like
Nobody ever
breathing.
said to you, why don't you do a double dutch or something like that?
No, I don't remember anyone saying that to me. They would just ask me, what, didn't I have something better to do? And I said, yeah, right here. This is my work better to do.
I have a little funny tidbit about Bunny and I when they used to send us out to sell papers. Even though I was older, I was a lot smaller. I was about 93 pounds, and if I turned sideways, you wouldn't see me at all. Bunny was a big young girl. She was quite big. And I kept complaining that don't send me out there to sell with papers with Bunny, because I can't sell my papers because she has her chest in everybody's face. and it was really hard for me. And we would sell on any given day.
That's not true.
$100, 100 papers per setting. So that was something that we did, and we didn't just sell papers in the Corona East Elmhurst area. We went to down in the village. In the movie Black Panther: The Vanguard, they have a picture of me selling papers in Port Authority. So it wasn't just here that we focused on, although we always had somebody in our community, but we branched out. We went up to the Bronx, we went up to Harlem, even though there were other Panthers there, but we covered a lot of area. And after you do something over and over and over again, repetitiously, you become a salesman. So it no longer was hard or you were nervous. It was like, second thought. I'm going to sell these papers.
And one of the other things about the newspaper, you had to read the newspaper.
Right.
You had to know every page.
Before we
you had to understand everything about it.
Read them.
So
we know what we were talking about. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just.
So you had to approach people with knowledge.
Yes.
It was not just the emotion,
No.
but you were able to explain the political, social, economic aspects of the program.
Right.
You mentioned earlier about the danger that that was so pervasive against the members of the Black Panther Party, and you all know the history, eventually how that went. But at that time, could you try to give me us, the audience, understanding why were you not afraid of death?
That's because There was a quote, and I can't remember the whole thing, but when we was in the party, we all thought that we was going to die, serving the people. And that was part of what we believed. We always believed that we stood the chance of dying, but we would be dying in the service of the people. So we wasn't afraid. And as young people are not afraid of death. It's when you start to get into reality that you realize about dying. You don't think that you're going to die. I mean, this is why accidents and all this stuff with young people, because you're not afraid to die. And that's normal. So being in the Black Panther Party, you just knew that you're going to die. I mean, I wrote letters to her. I actually collected information from Essence Magazine, because Essence Magazine was just coming out. And I kept certain articles for her, thinking that I was going to die serving the people.
It was very, very funny when you think about it, because we never thought that we would live past the age of 25. 25 was the limit of how we gave ourselves. It's how long we had to be here, or how long we had to fight, as long as we could fight, because 25 is like the end time. I mean, if you look at the brothers that were being killed, they were killed and or jailed. They were 19, 20, 21, and 22. They were college students, high school students, so we never thought that we would, get above that. I remember my mom, it was, I don't know how I feel about it right now, but my mom, she had a different approach than everybody else's mom when she realized that I was not going to come home, that I was going to stay in the Black Panther Party. She upped my insurance. It was like, well, if she's got to go, I'll have money to bury her. So.
Wow, I also like to get to the insight as to, you mentioned that the enchanters and the chaplains. I was the chaplain. I was the chaplain in Corona. But at the time, we were just fighting each other, and not really thinking politically or consciously. It was more territorial. You live on this side of the boulevard, I live on that side of the boulevard. You live in Elmhurst, I live in Corona. So we had those kind of rivalries. What kind of education did you receive as members of the Black Panther Party that brought about such unity among groups who historically were at each other's throats?
That's just it. It was that. It was that when the enchanters and the chaplains became politicalized, and they could come together and put all of their differences to the side, because they had one goal. Now they were fighting for their people. They were fighting for their community, not just one block here or one playground or one schoolyard. And that was happening all over. It was happening in LA, where Bunchy Carter got all the gangs to throw down their signs and become Panthers. So, they had, well, Fred did it in Chicago. So, it was happening, and it was happening everywhere, because, I don't know, a lot of people may not know this, but everywhere there was a hood, there was a branch of the Black Panther Party. So things were happening here, were happening across the United States.
And I just want to say one thing, well, not one thing, but going back to the selling of the papers. We were selling so many papers that the FBI used to chase us. I mean, literally chase us. And everywhere we'd go, we turn around and here they were. And they were really literally chasing us. And then I was arrested. I was one of, if you remember, the 3 sisters that was arrested in East Elmhurst. It was in the Long Island Press at that time. I was one of them. And they tried to intimidate us, the whole thing. I think Mackel was the DA at the time. He definitely tried to intimidate us. And we had nothing to say to them. But they had us in the women's house of detention in the Greenwich Village for a whole week without a lawyer.
This is at 14 and 15
This
years
was at
old.
14
These are
and
children.
15. This was at 14 and 15 years old. And we didn't see not one lawyer, not until a whole week later, they released us without no charges. But they threatened us. They threatened that they was going to shoot us, take us in behind 114 precinct and line us up against the wall, and they cursed us, called us black. And they said, we're going to shoot you, we're going to kill you. And they thought, I guess they figured that we were going to break down, but we didn't. And that was the part of it. That's the fear. That was the part that you're talking about. We didn't have that fear.
Right.
I mean, we were apprehensive a little because it was like all of a sudden here they were arresting us out of nowhere. But we didn't fear. We didn't think about dying like that. Okay, I'm done.
Before the Panthers, some of the chaplains and enchanters had already, drugs was really in our community, destroying this Corona East Elmhurst. So the drugs kind of reduced the gangs of the chaplains and the enchanters. Drugs did that. But then they became political with the Nation of Islam. Some of them joined the Nation of Islam, and those that didn't, like Saul and them, they didn't join the Nation, but they were also part of the Revolutionary Action Movement. All of this before the Black Panther Party. So their politics superseded the Black Panther Party. And so when they came, within the interesting thing, I always talk about, the interesting thing about Corona is we had age 14 to 30. We had in the Corona branch, we had high school students, we had college students, former addicts, former members of the Nation of Islam, former members of the Communist Party, former military, formerly incarcerated, and working class and nationalists. That all these people made up Corona. And in '69, we were a subsection of the Jamaica chapter. There was chapters in New York. New York had different chapters, and interesting, New York was the second state where Panthers came, because it was California, then Seattle, Washington, and then New York. And Brooklyn was the first. It started in Brooklyn. But Jamaica was the subsection. But Corona, brothers from Jamaica came over to Corona and talked to Saul and them and asked them about joining the party. But by this time, Saul and them was already political. That's why the Malcolm X Cultural Center was there. So they had already gained the politics before 1960, the fall of 68, I'm sorry.
Great. I'm glad you mentioned the Malcolm X Cultural Center. In your opinion, as a result of the actions and the activities of the Corona branch of the Black Panther Party, can you identify any institutional, long-term institutional gains made as a result of the sacrifices that were made by these young people?
Elmhurst. The history of Elmhurst is a result Langston Hughes Library. The Panthers were involved in that. But Elmhurst mainly, the 107th Street and Northern Boulevard, where Elmhurst is, was actually an office of the Black Panther Party before it became Elmhurst.
Right.
Yeah. And then I could go back to Elmhurst and just tell you, people that was a part, especially the drug program. It was mainly the drug program. It was the drug program with Otley and Lou Benson that was the key to Corona, East Elmhurst, and Elmhurst is still here, and then Jeff. That's what makes up Elmhurst, and it's still here. And when it was time, the other thing that happened is when it was community corporation, and when that closed and they stopped defunding the community corporations, it was Jeff and a man named Mr. Webster who decided to keep the money in the community. And the only reason the money stayed in this community was because of Elmhurst. Elmhurst was a 501c3, established, and was able to pick up all of the programs that was about to be lost. And it's still here to this day.
Fantastic. Anybody want to add to that? I just want to ask one, specifically, what did the Black Panther Party do to get Langston Hughes and Elmhurst?
Okay. Elmhurst, well, Langston Hughes, Otley Brownville was our mentor. And when things started to change and brothers started to go to jail, Bill convinced Saul and them to become a part and work. They were all Panthers. They were Panthers, and started to work and help build 107th Street. That was one of the things. They built, and you had some of the brothers like Zorro and Jeannie Gray, and all these brothers were the ones that built 107-10 Northern Boulevard. Okay, and Langston Hughes, we were a part of the first when they started the committee to start Langston Hughes. We were some of the first people that were part of it. We had a representative, his name was Carlton Yearwood, and he was a Panther. And what we did really was to serve the community. Anything that the community was involved with, I can remember going to Albany with this woman, Miss Petty, dealing with the schools. But I was going as a Panther. So this is the things that we did.
Okay, very, very beautiful. Now we're going to have, if anyone from the audience would like to ask a question, but I'll have one more question and I'll be quiet. I want the women, this is Women's History Month, the women in the Corona branch of the Black Panther Party. The role, was it a subsidiary role to the men or partnership, or how did that pan out?
Oh no, that's a big misconception. You know, you've seen the women warriors in Angola. They used to fight in the war right next to the men with the guns. Well, in the Black Panther Party, I mean, when they first started out, just like any organization, there's bugs you gotta iron out. But once they were ironed out, the women did everything that the men did. We had to learn everything that the men learned. When we, a lot of people used to say that we swapped roles. That's not necessarily true. We didn't swap roles, but everybody was able to do everybody else's role. Like, it wasn't only the women that went into the kitchen for the breakfast program. You know, brothers put those little nets over their afros and threw on an apron, and they cooked and they served just like that. I remember in the Corona Elmhurst area where we took petitions and went door to door to ask people would they allow their children to come to the breakfast program. So, you know, I remember taking a tablespoon and filling up sandbags. You know, so it wasn't gender based. You know, it was soldier based.
Anybody want to add to that?
the captains, the Panthers was set up in an organizational military format. And in Brooklyn, we had one of the first sisters that was the captain of the branch. Her name was Brenda Hyson. So sisters played every role, and when they started to actually arrest so many brothers, and brothers was killed, it was the women that kept the offices open. And at one time in the Black Panther Party, it was like 70% of the party was women. And most people don't realize that 70% of the party was women. So the roles were there.
When the Panther 21, and this is the 21 Panthers from out of the Harlem branch, were all arrested and went to jail on the same day, the powers that be really thought that, okay, we've got all of the leadership, the office is going to fold, everything's going to be the way it used to be, nobody's going to care anymore. And they said, I was one of the sisters that went from Corona, which was my home, to Harlem to keep that office open, which was, that was like a future shock, going from what we know, Coroni's Elmhurst, up to the village of Harlem.
Yes.
And women became the officers of the day. Women did the day-to-day things that was usually a man to do it.
We did the
We
grunt work.
gave out the assignments, who was going to sell papers here, who was going to start this rent strike here, and it was women. Then we had women that, if everybody else was out in the field, women had to go home and cook for the people that was working in the field to have something to eat. And I'm still a bad cook. I mean, if it wasn't for my husband, I wouldn't know anything. We'd be eating Frosted Flakes 3 times a day. But, you had to learn how to do things that you wouldn't normally do. We had, sometimes women were out in the field and the men had to watch the babies. They had to feed them. They had to diaper them. They had to, so it was a little bit more than a partnership. It was.
Okay.
I just want to say, I remember we were talking about, I remember working in the Bronx and taking petitions and if anybody remember what the Bronx looked like back then, it was like a bombed out
Fort Apache.
Right. I'm by myself, and I used to go up into the buildings and knock on the people's doors and ask them to sign these petitions against these slum landlords where they had electric cords from one building to the other, trying to get some electricity, no hot water, no heat, nothing like that. And I remember me, 14, going from one building to the other building, Marsania Projects, Boston Road, all the way up to the end, and back again, and with petitions signed for these people. It was so hurtful to see the living conditions that these people were living in. Our people that were living in. And you would say that's a man's job. Well, it wasn't for us. I did that. And other sisters like myself did that. Okay.
So you would have to understand, being in the Black Panther Party, it was, like I said before, it was not gender-based. They were locking us up. The sisters were being shot. So the police didn't care if it was a woman.
They didn't care.
Are there any questions from the audience. We'll take a few before we wrap it up. Anyone who have any burning question to ask the parents? Yes.
Hi.
Yeah.
My name is Karen. And, it's very interesting. It's so enlightening, just to hear, because, I'm from East Elmhurst as well. I've been here many years. And just to hear, I was always interested in the Black Panthers growing up because they were role models. They were role models. But just to hear, which I did not know about those streetlights. It's very interesting to come here and hear this knowledge, the things that you did not know that they did. Because a lot of stuff they're not going to, people not going to tell us, but the original members or the members of the Black Panther Party. But one of my other questions is, I had heard that the Black Panthers were also involved with the WIC program. Did they have something to do with the WIC program or with the Meals on Wheels? No?
It was, the Black Panther Party was the breakfast program.
Okay.
School, breakfast for school children. That's one of the things that was, that they're taken over by the government. And another one is testing for sickle cell anemia.
Okay.
And also testing for lead. The paint pica is what it was called. That was started by the Black Panther Party, testing children for those things.
And that's a very good thing because that's still happening right now with the New York City housing and the lead and everything.
Right. So those were things that were started by the party. The Black Panther Party has several what they call survival programs for this. And not only did the party, they established them, but if you go back and you look at the Young Lords, the American Indian movement, and across the country, not just the country, but the world, in New Zealand, Panthers came up all over the country and the world. Australia, they had a Black Panther in Australia, and they picked up, and it was based on these survival programs. One of the political prisoners, Leonard Peltier, he Native American, he's in prison right now, but he talks about the fact that what they do is they took the programs of the Black Panther Party and they used those same programs in with the Native people.
Of course, we never got credit for anything that we started or initiated. I mean, the Breakfast for Children program, the mayor took credit for that. So, if you don't know, then you don't know.
Exactly, and I thank you all for enlightening us.
Thank you for your question.
Can I just
Okay.
make a comment? And in Corona, East Elmhurst, Panthers had 2 breakfast programs. One out of Congregational Church, thanks to Reverend Sherrod, and one out of Church of Resurrection, thanks to Father Wright. They supported the program. And I want to also mention that the breakfast program was supported by the grocer, like the stores. No funds. We wasn't getting any government funds for these programs, but we were feeding thousands of children a week.
We would approach the managers in the supermarkets and grocery stores and ask for their donations. And they would give it to us.
Or we would boycott that store. That was the other side of it is, if someone said that they would not give, we would stand in front of that store to let them know that they're not supporting the breakfast program and to go someplace else. So, there was a reason.
We have another question.
Yes, hi, hello everybody. My name is Stacy Mason Sotilli. I grew up in Corona, East Elmhurst. I'm born in the 70s, so I hear my older sister speaking about the Black Panthers. But I'm also an advocate for sickle cell disease because I was born with sickle cell SS disease. And as I go around to advocate for sickle cell, I always bring up the Panthers and how that they really started in the United States, the federal testing for sickle cell trait. It wasn't until the 70s where when a baby is born in the United States, there was no testing at all to see if they had the sickle cell trait. So as part of the Black Panthers, one of their programs, that was a big program, and a lot of people unfortunately don't know about these wonderful things that were added by the Panthers because of all of the adverse media, showing Panthers toting guns and things like that. But there's information out there. If you go on YouTube, there's some films that show what the Panthers did for sickle cell disease, and they really pioneered these programs that are still up and running today.
Yes.
Hi, my name is April, and I want to salute you. Salute you women. Panthers. So awesome to be in your presence today. When I think of the work of the Panthers, I just think of like unending pressure and unending violence, and you all never having a chance to breathe. And I just want to know, was there anybody, maybe on the police force or on the side or undercover that supported you, that gave you any respite, that gave you any sanctuary, that gave you any safety, any relief at all? Was there anyone that ever gave you any support, relief, or sanctuary?
When you say sanctuary, the police were trying to kill us, so first of all, they weren't going to do anything at all in our behalf. The FBI was trying to set us up, send us to jail for conspiracy. When we say all power to the people, we're talking about the people in the middle, in the communities that we come from. Any kind of sanctuary that was given, it came from the people. We could have been destroyed and massacred out there trying to get a street light, but the people came out. In LA, when they had the shoot-in, of course they called it a shootout.
It was a shootout.
Well, it was a shootout because they shot back. But it was the people in the community that came out into the streets. Otherwise, they would have been massacred. They wanted to, this happened 4 days after Fred Hampton was killed. That was the shoot-in.
Right.
4 days. They jumped from Chicago to LA and vamped on that office. But like we said, they shot back. There were sisters in that office. There were sisters that got shot in that office. But they would have been massacred if the people did not come out into the streets and watch them as they were arrested.
I want to point to another shootout. There was a brother from this community, Chuck Scott,
105th Street.
105th Street and 34th Avenue. 32nd Avenue, this brother lived. In September of 71, September of 71, he was involved in a shootout in New Orleans. He was sent from Connecticut to New Orleans by David Hilliard, and he was part of that group. They was in the Desire Projects in New Orleans. There was a shootout. Chuck was one of them. And if it wasn't for the community, they would have been killed. But Chuck managed to get, they managed to survive that. But Chuck Scott, I don't know how many people, you probably don't even know Chuck.
The Scotts and the Spencers.
He's one of the, it's the Scotts and the Spencers
They were
from
a
family.
Yeah.
But Chuck, in 1999, Chuck was dying. He had lung cancer. And they they connected again. The people from New Orleans found out about, we was together one night, me and this brother, and this brother said, I owe my life to this man. Mind you, this man was 19 years old at the time. Chuck saved this man's life, and we was talking about it in 1999. And he said, this guy, Charles Scott, he was from Connecticut. I said, no, this brother's not from Connecticut, he's from Corona. We'll go to his house. We went to his house that night. Chuck is dying. Those people from New Orleans found out that they found Chuck. They came, and some of those sisters came to take care of him. That's Panther spirit.
We have time for like one more question.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sonia Davis. I grew up in Corona as well. I'm looking at the, I know one of the 10-point program of the Black Panthers was the immediate stop of police brutality and the murder of black people. And here we are 50 years, 60 years later, still dealing with this today. I would like the opinion of each of you. What do you think we as a people should do now? Should we change our strategy? How or not? Or what can we do today that can change that?
What strategy? They're killing us just like they're, it's like, it's like legal. They used to hang us from trees, now they can just, shoot you while walking black. I mean, when you say what can we do, the only thing that I can see that we can do right now, which is taking too long for people to, let me put it this way. I think what happened to black folks as a whole is they got complacent. They got to, well, if it's not happening to me. Back in the day, when there was a Black Panther Party for self-defense, they were patrolling the policemen so that things like that weren't happening on a regular basis like they are now. But there is no Black Panther Party, so we each, and every one of us who has children or nieces or nephews or grandchildren, or stand up and say no. Put the politicians in office that are saying no to this police brutality. Don't put them in because they handsome or they gave you some trinkets back in the, we have to start to take care of each other again.
And hold them accountable. Hold the politicians accountable. All the councilmen and crap that's in the community, they want your votes. Well, hold them accountable to what's happening. Make them do their job. They want to be there, do your job. That's what each and every one of us should be doing. And be vigilant, stay vigilant.
And I just want to, we'll have one more question. I just want to make a comment about that as well. What we've learned so far from the Black Panther Party is the whole concept of power to the people. And when we begin to start again to think as a community rather than individuals, then we'll start to see things happening. And this is one of the reasons why the Corona East Elmhurst Historic Preservation Society exists. We want to start thinking as a community. And as we do that, we look back at where we were and take those wonderful examples like the Black Panther Party and resurrect them into the minds of our young people so they too can feel that they can do something. Individually, none of us can do anything. The power is to the people.
That's right.
I just wanted to make a comment, too, really. One is, We have to, as a people, begin to educate our children about our history, because if they knew, they would it would make a difference. How many people in this audience know the Deacons for Self-Defense? Could you raise your hand if you know anything about the Deacons? The civil rights, if it wasn't the civil rights, the peaceful demonstrations, but who was around the peripheral protecting the people? The Deacons for Self-Defense. And I'm not saying that we have to go out there and be the Deacons or the Black Panthers, but we have to give our children the knowledge, and so that they know. And there's this sister had this thing called the Little Black Book, and I give that away to all of my grandkids and any child that comes in with me, because there is no way that you're not going to be stopped. If you're Black, you're going to be stopped. They need to know what to do, because a lot of the killings that I see is because, not the victim, but because they don't know what to do. I mean, how do you kill someone who tells you, I have a gun and it's registered, and you shoot them in front of their 4-year-old child? You murder them. When is it going to be a time when not just Black lives matter, but all lives matter, as they like to say? But when is it going to be a time when police matter more than anybody else's life in this country? And that's the thing. We think that the policemen go out there, they do their job. If they get killed, oh, the person gets life. And we accept that. We accept that kind of nonsense. So when we get killed, or we get funds, $1 million.
We're going to have to, after this panel is over, you can interact with them, talk with them, get more information, etc. But we do have a time sensitive situation. I think they did a fantastic job. You can stand, come on, yes. It's too fun.
We have 12 Panthers that have been in prison, some of them almost 50 years. Wow. And most of them, I'll tell you, all of them, all 12 of those political prisoners, because that's what they are. The government says that they don't exist, and there's no such thing as a political prisoner, they're just criminals. But there's 12 Panthers. Ranging, the oldest is 80 years old. And what we would like for people to do is go online and see what's going on with them. We was fortunate the other day to have one of the political prisoners paroled. His name is Herman Bell. And Herman, the police department, the wife of the person that he was charged with killing, have created this campaign. But mind you, Herman has been in jail for 42 years. And they want to keep him there. Their sentences was 25 to life. They've come before the parole board. This is all of them. They've come before the parole board 6 and 7 times. But the police said they need to rot in jail. They're murderers. Yes, they was charged with killing policemen. All of them have been charged with killing policemen. But at the time, their sentences was 25 years to life, 25 years with the possibility of parole. With the possibility of parole. Now they went in at 19. Now they're 60, 70, 80 years old. It's time to bring them home.
Right. Thank you so much. So we are, at this point, we're going to serve the food. But before I do that, I just want to, there's some members of the, newly members of the Corona East Elmhurst Historic Preservation Society. Could you just stand up, the new members who just joined our organization? Let's give them a nice round of applause. We have meetings once a month. We don't meet long, but we meet strong. And please, join the Corona East Elmhurst Historic Preservation Society. We have history that's so rich and so important to be preserved, and your participation will help us in that effort. The collage is for sale in the back if you want a poster.